The moment I saw her standing in the faint glow of the parking lot lights outside the small-town grocery store in Texas, holding her stomach with one hand and her keys trembling in the other, something inside me cracked open like it had been waiting for this very moment. My chest tightened, my breath caught, and before I could stop myself, the words escaped in a shaky whisper as memories of that reckless emotional night rushed back through me. I said, "The baby... it's mine, right? That night, And she looked up at me with widened eyes, cheeks flushed from embarrassment rather than guilt, and replied with a soft, almost awkward laugh, "No, I just ate too much." But the silence that followed told me this moment wasn't about babies or secrets or what happened months ago. It was about something deeper, something we both had been running from. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and the power of second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people find stories that touch the heart. Her name was Hannah, a quiet but fiercely loyal woman with warm brown eyes and a voice that always reminded me of late-night radio hosts who spoke softly, as if afraid to disturb the stars. We'd known each other for years, growing up in the same neighborhood, attending the same church gatherings, occasionally bumping into each other at the diner where she worked the morning shift. I, Jacob, had always admired her from a distance, especially during the years I struggled through heartbreak, unemployment, and the weight of mistakes I never quite forgave myself for. She had been the kind of presence that felt safe without ever asking for attention. The kind of person you didn't realize you depended on until life finally hit hard enough to strip away everything else. That night months ago, the night I hinted about, it hadn't been planned. It had been one of those evenings where loneliness met vulnerability, where two people who had been comforting each other through rough phases found themselves standing too close, speaking too softly, sharing too much. One thing led to another, and in the dim quiet of her small apartment, lit only by the glow of her table lamp, we crossed a line neither of us had expected. The morning after, we didn't talk about it. It wasn't shame, it was fear. Fear of ruining whatever fragile connection we already had. But today, seeing her pale, holding her stomach and trying to brush it off as nothing, stirred every instinct inside me. She wasn't pregnant, she insisted. She wasn't hiding anything. But she was stressing, working double shifts, skipping meals, losing sleep, and trying to pretend everything was fine. And I realized her well-being mattered to me far more than any answer to any question about a baby. She walked toward her car, but her steps were slow, uneven. I offered to drive her home, and though she hesitated, she eventually nodded. Driving through the quiet Texas streets, passing dim gas stations and shuttered strip malls, I kept glancing at her out of the corner of my eye. Her forehead was pressed against the window, and she let out a tired sigh that felt heavy enough to break glass. I started talking, not about the night, not about my earlier question, but about things she could actually answer. How long had she been working double shifts? Why hadn't she told anyone she wasn't feeling well? When was the last time she had eaten something besides leftover diner food? Bit by bit, her walls slipped. She told me about rent increases, about her mother's medical bills, about the exhaustion that lived in her bones. She told me she didn't want to worry anyone. She told me she didn't want me to feel obligated to take care of her because of one impulsive night. When I pulled into her driveway, a tiny, worn-down house she rented outside the edge of town, her headlights brushed across peeling paint, an overgrown lawn, and a porch light flickering like it was dying too. I followed her. Inside, and it felt like stepping into someone's life laid bare. A stack of unpaid bills on the kitchen counter, half-eaten soup on the stove, a sagging couch with a blanket tossed carelessly over the arm. She sank into the couch, covering her face with her hands, and whispered that she felt overwhelmed. Something in me broke hearing that. I sat beside her and told her she didn't have to go through any of this alone anymore. For years I had run from responsibility, from commitment, from anything that reminded me of the ways I'd failed. But looking at her, this gentle woman carrying the weight of the world with trembling hands, I felt something shift inside me, like the first breath after resurfacing from deep water. Over the next few weeks I began showing up, not because she asked, but because I wanted to. I fixed the leaking sink, trimmed the lawn, brought groceries, replaced her flickering porch light. At first she protested, insisting she didn't want charity or pity. I told her it wasn't charity. It wasn't pity, it was care, real care, and she deserved that without having to earn it through suffering. Slowly, she let herself accept help. She started smiling again, soft and shy. She started eating regular meals, laughing at my terrible jokes, and shedding some of the fear that had haunted her. But healing isn't linear, and one night, after a long double shift, she broke down. We sat at her small dining table, steam rising from the bowl of chicken soup I'd made, and she told me she felt guilty. Guilty for letting me help. Guilty for depending on someone. Guilty for still thinking about that night and wondering if it had meant as much to me as it had to her. She admitted she had been afraid I'd regret it, afraid she'd read too much into it, afraid I'd disappear once she wasn't struggling anymore. Her vulnerability was like a punch to the chest, because I'd been hiding similar fears. I told her that the night we shared wasn't a mistake to me, that it had been the first time in years I felt connected to someone, that it didn't scare me, but my feelings for her did. She looked up at me, those soft brown eyes shimmering with unshed tears, and for the first time I realized she wasn't fragile. She was strong, but tired of being strong alone. We didn't rush into anything. Instead, we fell into a steady rhythm, a quiet companionship that felt like sunlight warming a cold room. I drove her to church on Sundays. She made me pancakes shaped like uneven hearts. We spent evenings on her couch watching old movies, sometimes falling asleep with her head on my shoulder. The tenderness grew naturally, gently, almost imperceptibly until one day it was impossible to deny. But life, as always, tested us. Her mother's health worsened, and the hospital bills piled back up. My job cut hours, leaving me scrambling for side work. We found ourselves facing a shared storm, standing shoulder to shoulder, unsure if we were strong enough to withstand it. But something beautiful happened. Instead of turning away, we turned toward each other. We found faith in small victories. The neighbor who donated canned food, the church group that helped with medical supplies, the manager who gave me extra shifts after seeing how hard I worked. We learned to pray together, cry together, laugh together. Our connection deepened until it wasn't just companionship. It was commitment. It was something like love. Near the end of summer, months after the moment that started everything, I stood on her porch as fireflies drifted through the warm Texas air. She stepped outside beside me, her hair brushing lightly against my arm, and whispered that she finally felt safe. And in that moment, I realized I wanted to protect that feeling for the rest of my life. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps more people find emotional stories just like this one. Before we close, please comment below, what would you have done in Jacob's place? And as the story ends, know this: sometimes the most meaningful beginnings come from the moments we never planned. Moments born from fear, from confusion, from vulnerability. Moments that make us question everything, only to reveal what we've been searching for all along. Real love isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it grows quietly, like a light in the dark, guiding two people toward the life they were always meant to build, side by side.